You were doing everything right. The conversation flowed smoothly. The chemistry felt real, and she laughed at your jokes, even the dry ones. You were finally starting to relax, thinking, yeah, this might actually go somewhere. You didn't rush things. You didn't overwhelm her. You showed up with real interest, consistency, and genuine intentions. And just when you thought the connection was leveling up, something changed. Her replies started to slow down, and the energy shifted. You noticed a subtle coldness in her tone. She was still there, but it felt like she wasn't really present anymore. You were left wondering, what just happened? Did I do something wrong? Was I too available, too honest, too good? Here's the part that most people don't tell you. When things start getting emotionally real, that's often when women pull away. Not because they've lost interest, but because they start feeling something they can't control. There's a point in every connection where things go from being light and fun to something deeper. It could be a small gesture, something you said, the way you looked at her, or the way you listened when she opened up about something personal. In that moment, something inside her says, wait, this is starting to feel serious. For some women, that feeling is beautiful, but for others, especially those who've been hurt before, it's terrifying. It's not because of you, but because of the emotional mirror you've just placed in front of her. Suddenly, she's faced with her own vulnerability, her walls, her fears, and all the things she hasn't fully healed from. You didn't pressure her. You didn't rush anything. But your presence began unlocking something she wasn't ready to face. And when that happens, she pulls away. Not because you were doing too much, but because for the first time, you were showing her what real, genuine connection looks like. And real comes with risk. Now here's where it gets real. Most guys think when a woman pulls away, it's because she's bored, met someone else, or that they've lost their edge. But often, it's not about any of that. It's about proximity to something real. See, emotional intimacy is like a mirror. It doesn't just reflect how she feels about you, it also reflects how she feels about herself. If there's any part of her that still doubts her worth, her readiness, or her ability to handle something meaningful, that mirror becomes uncomfortable. Fast. That's why she pulls away when things start to feel good. Good comes with expectations, honesty, mutual accountability, and not everyone is ready for that, especially if they've been used to surface-level connections where no one has to be vulnerable. She might have told herself this was just casual, just fun, but now she's smiling differently. She's thinking about you more than she expected to. She's realizing you actually listen, remember things, and care. And that feeling, it's not casual anymore. It's dangerous, because now she has something to lose. And that's what triggers the pullback. It's not a lack of attraction. It's the presence of emotional risk. She starts second-guessing herself. Do I really deserve this? What if he sees the parts of me I've tried to hide? What if this ends like the last time? Instead of leaning in, she retreats. Not because she's cold, but because she's scared. You didn't do anything wrong. You just unknowingly triggered her emotional defense system, built to protect herself from getting hurt again. And this is where most men sabotage the situation. They chase harder, over-explain, try to fix something they didn't break. But the truth is, what she needs in that moment isn't more pressure. It's proof that your presence doesn't come with force, that you're solid enough to give her space without falling apart, that your identity doesn't collapse just because her energy shifted. When you do that, you separate yourself from every man she's dealt with before. Not because you're colder, but because you're calmer. Not because you don't care, but because you care without losing yourself. And that stillness, that grounded energy, is exactly what makes her rethink the distance she created in the first place. Here's where your power either solidifies or slips. When she pulls away, your first instinct might be to lean in, to remind her of how good things were, to try and restore the flow you both once had. But here's the harsh truth. Trying to reconvince her of something she already felt will only push her further away. To her, that behavior confirms her biggest fear, that this will turn into pressure, that she'll be expected to match your energy when she's still trying to sort through her own feelings, and that she might end up responsible for someone else's emotions again. But when you hold your ground instead of reacting, when you continue living, working, laughing, and growing without shrinking just because she's distant, that's when she notices something different. She expected a reaction, but what she got was reliability. She expected to feel power in her silence, but what she feels now is a man who isn't fazed by temporary distance. And that's rare, because most men would falter. You didn't. Men often don't realize that when a woman pulls away, she's not always leaving. Sometimes she's checking to see what you'll do. Will you fall apart? Will your emotions spike? Is the image you've been projecting something you can only maintain when she's close? She's watching closely, even if she's quiet. And when she sees that your energy doesn't change, that your tone stays calm, your vibe stays focused, and your life stays full, that's when the gravity shifts. In a world full of men who crack under emotional distance, you're showing her what a man looks like who doesn't chase, doesn't collapse, but also doesn't play games. That kind of presence lingers, not in a desperate way, but in a way that makes her ask herself, did I just pull away from the kind of man I said I was looking for? You didn't say it. You didn't guilt trip her. You didn't plead. You just kept building your world and left the door open without standing in it. That posture alone changes the entire story. Because you didn't prove you were worthy of her return. You proved that your peace wasn't up for negotiation. And now, she doesn't just feel your absence, she respects it. Here's what most guys never understand. There's a point where your absence stops feeling like a phase and starts feeling like a statement. Not a loud, dramatic announcement. Not a message designed to provoke a reaction. But a quiet, unshakable signal that says, I'm not here to chase love. I'm here to live in truth. And that hits differently because now she's not just feeling the silence. She's realizing you're not using it to manipulate. You're not waiting around for her to notice. You're not throwing breadcrumbs hoping she'll follow them back to you. You're gone. Not out of anger, but out of alignment. That's when things start to stir inside her. Because now, she's not in control of the tempo anymore. And for someone who thought she had the emotional upper hand, that shift is unsettling in the most subtle way. She starts thinking about all the times you were there when she needed you, how you responded, how present you were, how you never made her feel judged or pushed, just seen. And the contrast between that energy and the silence she's now sitting in speaks louder than anything you could have said. Because she begins to realize you didn't just pull back, you adjusted. And that adjustment didn't come from bitterness. It came from self-respect. There's something incredibly attractive about a man who doesn't need chaos to find clarity. You didn't wait for closure. You became your own closure. And that scares her more than losing you ever did. Because if a man can walk away from someone he once cared for, not to win, not to punish, but to protect his peace, then he's not just emotionally strong, he's emotionally free. Now she's left with that silence, and the more she tries to fill it with distractions, the more she realizes that the calm she used to feel around you wasn't something she can replace by swiping, texting, or pretending. It was you, your presence, your consistency, your emotional intelligence, and the way you made her feel safe. Not because you needed her, but because you were already solid without her. Now that's a man you don't forget easily. At some point, it starts to dawn on her that the silence she thought would pass didn't. That version of you she thought would reach out eventually. He never showed. Instead of circling back, you kept moving. Instead of asking where you stood, you built ground under your own feet. And while she's still checking your profile, still replaying your voice in her head, you're becoming more and more like a ghost. Not because you vanished, but because you evolved beyond her emotional reach. Now that absence feels heavy. It doesn't feel like a game. It doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like consequence. Because she finally gets it. You didn't walk away because you didn't care. You walked away because you were done offering peace to someone who only showed up during storms. And now, everything she once dismissed is playing louder in her head. Your calmness, your ability to stay composed without trying to prove anything, your way of being fully present but never needy, your depth, something she's now realizing not every man carries. In her silence, she starts bargaining with herself. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I misread his intention. Maybe he was exactly the kind of man I needed, but I wasn't ready for it. And here's the twist. The moment she starts thinking about you more than you think about her, the power dynamic quietly resets. Because emotional authority doesn't come from dominance. It comes from discipline. And nothing shows discipline more than a man who knows when to step back without lashing out. A man who holds his peace not as a weapon, but as a boundary. And that's where the regret sets in. She thought she could delay. She thought she could test the waters, but she miscalculated your silence. She thought it was temporary, when in reality, it was transformational. By the time she realizes the depth of what she lost, it might be too late. You're no longer the same man she walked away from. You're wiser, more grounded, less reactive, more centered, and the tragic irony is, now that she's finally ready to step forward, you've become the version of yourself that no longer waits. You're not bitter, you're not vengeful, you're simply unavailable. And that's the lesson she carries now. A man who honors himself is never truly alone. He's just walking on a path too high for others to follow. This is the part that stings the most for her, because now she's not dealing with just distance. She's dealing with replacement. Not by another woman, but by your focus, your discipline, your growth. You see, when you stop pouring into someone who only showed up inconsistently, you don't become colder, you become clearer. And clarity is a powerful weapon. It tells you what you deserve without needing anyone else to confirm it. She's realizing now that while she was testing your patience, you were testing your own standards. Somewhere along the line, you stopped asking, why did she pull away? And started asking, why was I holding on? That shift is quiet, but it changes everything. Because now, the things that once had emotional weight, they don't pull at you the same. Her silence doesn't sting. Her delay doesn't bother you. Her distance doesn't feel personal. It feels like space for your own evolution. And what she thought would draw you back, your memories, her charm, the emotional bond, those things don't hit the same anymore. Because growth creates distance, not out of anger, but out of elevation. You can care about someone deeply and still know that they're not meant to sit beside the man you're becoming. That's what she didn't expect. She didn't expect you to detach from what wasn't serving you. She didn't expect you to fill your silence with momentum. She didn't expect you to become so grounded in your purpose that her absence stopped being a loss and started feeling like a lesson. And the moment you hit that point, that's when it's over for her. Because what was once optional for you has now become unrecognizable. You've crossed an emotional threshold where love isn't about attachment. It's about alignment. And if she can't meet you there, you're not stepping down to explain why. Because the new you doesn't chase understanding. He lives in peace. So let her wonder. Let her overthink. Let her sit with the silence she created. You're not punishing her. You're protecting the version of you that took too long to build just to give it away to someone unsure. If this reminded you of what you're stepping into, then don't stop here. Click the next video. Keep evolving. Keep walking forward. Let her be a chapter, but make sure you finish the story for you. What you don't realize, because you've been focused on rebuilding yourself, is that time has been working on your behalf the entire time. Every hour you didn't text her, every day you didn't check her stories, every week you didn't fold and try to explain yourself again. Those weren't wasted. They were stacking silence. When rooted in self-respect, silence doesn't just create distance. It creates contrast. She goes on with her life thinking she made the right choice, that her pulling away was smart, logical, and emotionally safe. But time has a way of peeling back illusions. It softens ego. It reveals what was real and what was reactive. She starts comparing, not just you to other men, but how she felt with you to how she feels now. And it's in those quiet moments when everything slows down, when the excitement of being free wears off, that your absence starts to echo. Because while you were silent, you didn't just disappear, you leveled up. You weren't trying to make her miss you. You were trying to find the parts of yourself you had once buried in that connection. And what you found, that's what changed everything. You stopped asking how she felt. You started asking, who am I becoming? You stopped waiting for her message. You started investing in your mission. You stopped walking in circles inside her indecision, and you built a straight path forward. And now, the version of you she once pulled away from, he's gone. In his place stands a man who doesn't just know his value. He embodies it quietly, calmly, unapologetically. And now, she's the one revisiting the past. Not because of nostalgia, but because she finally sees what she gave up. Not the old you, the evolved you. Here's what you need to hear clearly right now. Your job is not to make her realize what she lost. Your job is to become someone who never questions what he offers. Because when you live like that, you stop needing closure. You stop needing explanations. You stop needing validation from someone who wasn't ready to receive what you were built to give. And from that energy, she can feel everything, even in your silence. And now, the silence starts to speak louder than words ever could. Because while she tried to carry on like nothing happened, there's a quiet part of her that knows you didn't just go silent. You outgrew the noise. That version of her that expected you to wait, to linger in the background, hoping for crumbs of attention. He's not here anymore. She thought she could pause the connection and press play whenever she felt ready. But time has moved. You have moved. And now she's realizing the man she thought would always be there has built a life that doesn't revolve around her presence or her permission. And that's when the regret hits. Not all at once, but slowly, deeply, when she least expects it. But this story isn't about her anymore. It's about you. And your growth doesn't end here. This is just the beginning. So if this resonated with you, if you felt any part of yourself in this journey, don't stop now. Click the next video on your screen. Double down on your evolution. There's more peace, power, and clarity waiting for you than you can imagine. And the best part? You won't have to chase it. You'll become it.